Okay, so I'm just going to talk about deployment. We're going to keep it kind of brief because I want this to be in this semester, right? A couple things we want to do. I'm actually going to go in here. I tested it beforehand. There are some things that we'll play with. I'm not going to do anything about these. We're essentially out of time, so I'm not going to. Sorry, I'm trying to grab these and I'm trying to right click and get rid of them. Okay. So we're gonna need this folder open. Let's keep that folder open. Then we gotta go open command. We're gonna go to the desktop and we're gonna go to our Angular folder. All right, so one way to deploy this is simply put, just like we've been doing in class. There, you run the server, right? You run the server on 4200, which then communicates with the server on 8080. Localhost, you can expose the Angular server and hide the in backend in the backend. Excuse me, hide the backend in the backend. Hide the backend at localhost, and you're only exposing 4200. Many outfits actually do this, and that's fine. You still need cores in those situations. Many people do this. Many organizations do this for the simple reason that that their interface changes, that their visuals change far more than their backend. So there's no reason to change the backend. They create a very vulnerable backend. Vulnerable is not the right word. Venerable. I don't know how to pronounce it, but they produce a very hardened, solid, awesome, good backend that's future-proofed, so to speak. So that doesn't change too often. But as well as you can deploy that in several servers as well. And then you create your front end. Bing, bang, boom. Awesome. Um, great. Not an actual concern. But several cloud solutions become a big problem pretty quickly. Because now we have to deploy two sets of servers and we need to manage them, right? If we have different versions of the servers, we have to manage those differences. And that is not trivial on its own. One way we can do this is to actually get rid of Node.js. And we can do that by building the application. So we go ng build, we're going to say C, and we're going to go production. And that will actually build our application. We actually have to work from a working situation that will build our application, and then it'll put it in a dist student app. Now, this is not exactly rocket solid. There's some things that we have to talk about. What this does is it actually creates our entire distribution within this browser folder. And I can cut it. And remember that folder I had earlier? Our static resources inside our Angular folder. If you go look back here, static folders now has these details, right? Main to the index.html. The index.html is the same one you saw earlier. Yes. It's going to be our student app. Now, when we deploy this, it works great. Oops, what did I do wrong? Oh, it's already running. When you change static, you do need to rerun it again. It does create a jar file, which actually contains everything it needs when you're doing your distribution, and so forth. Now, when I go to localhost 8080, hello, I can log in as Mike, and the application just works. There may be some issues with the endpoints that you created in your student controller. Slash student slash SID. You want those to be managed by the Angular. I'm going to go student 54. Shoot, should go back here and use a number that actually exists. Then we go student 3. and we get this guy, right? So how do we do that? Well, we can configure it to not accept, force anything that's not the angular routes to be handled by angular routes by simply configuring the mechanism to do it. Pretty simple. I don't think we have time to do it. If I have time, I'll come back. But this whole thing runs on Spring Boot now, and Spring Boot can be managed down to a jar. Once it's down as a jar, you can actually deploy it very, very quickly and easily to a large number of cloud instances. In fact, Spring has its own cloud system, Spring Cloud, that you can deploy Spring Boot instances right within. And so it's a very useful mechanism to do this. Of course, we don't need cores, but one thing I want to point out is with the cores, we being there, it doesn't actually hurt anything. So we can leave it in or take it. Most of us would take it off because it would be a security concern. I'm going to stop the recording. I'll show you how to fix routes to Angular if we have time. If we don't, I'm going to just end here.